guys, you know I love a great bourbon with my steak, so we're going to the beautiful Flatiron Room. Come on, let's go and have some fun. Hi, we're here at the Flatiron Room and we're going to speak to Tommy Tardie today about my favorite drink, whiskey. And he's going to tell us everything we need to know about it. So what was your concept behind the Flatiron Room?
Well, I wanted to create a place that a mature audience could come, still be entertained, have a great meal, and have an amazing selection of whiskey.
And it's beautiful in here. It really is like walking into another era. Is that what you were going for?
Yeah, we wanted, when people walk through the door, I wanted it to be like, I wanted them to say to themselves, like, what did this place used to be? So there was a lot of details and a lot of things that went into making it that way. Everything from the floorboards that are 200 years old, we pulled them up from an old mill in Maine, and then we tongue and grooved them, planed them, and put them down, and that immediately added this character and this kind of feeling of timelessness.
Whiskey is an umbrella term for a number of different drinks. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, you said it best. Whiskey's an umbrella term. A lot of people come to me and they say, I like bourbon, but I don't like scotch. And I like whiskey, but I don't like single malts. So basically, whiskey's an umbrella term. If you like bourbon, you like whiskey. If you like single malt scotch, you like whiskey. If you like rye, you like whiskey. Even if you like new make or corn whiskey, you like whiskey. So they're all umbrella terms. And really what breaks them down into what's the difference between each one is the mash or the grain used in producing the whiskey. You know, the three major categories of whiskey are bourbon. Bourbon tends to be a little bit sweeter. People that like bourbon are going to taste more of the vanillas and the caramels. They get a lot of candy corn. The main component of bourbon that was required by law is corn. It has to be 51% or more corn, and it has to be aged in brand new American white oak barrels. So that's what's required by law to be bourbon. There's a few other things, but those are the two big ones. And then the other one is rye. If you know of rye whiskey. Rye is 51% or more rye, and then the rest of the mash can be corn, it could be barley, but it has to be 51% or more rye. And then the other rules also apply, which has to be aged in brand new American white oak barrels, and it has to be bottled at 40% or greater. And then the big category that most people are familiar with when they think of whiskey is single malts. I said single malts and not single malt scotch because scotch basically means it's made in Scotland. But single malts can be made anywhere in the world. It can be made in France, it can be made in Brooklyn, which there's some really good single malts that are made in Brooklyn. But the major component of that is 100% malted barley. So for something to be scotch, it's only the three ingredients that they can use are 100% malted barley, yeast, a very small amount of yeast, and water. And that's it.
And so what about the aging process? How is it relevant for whiskeys as opposed to something like wine?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. One of the most, people ask, where does all these flavors come from? People will say, I'm getting banana notes in my bourbon, or I taste like toasted marshmallows. And they're like, did you infuse it with toasted marshmallows? And we're like, no, legally there's no flavors that can be added to it. So those flavors actually come from the wood. And wood plays such an important role. These are new American white oak barrel staves. That dark line represents how deep the whiskey penetrated into the wood. In the summer months, the porous wood opens up and it acts like a sponge, so it draws all the whiskey in. And then when it's cold, it contracts and it pushes all the whiskey out. So it's an in and out contraction that really add the flavors and the aromatics and all the coloring to the whiskey.
So it really is all about the oak.
It's so much about the oak.
And I heard about the sea air also influencing some of the whiskeys in Scotland as well, like the saltiness as well.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up. brings me to my next prop.
Oh, great.
This big block of ugliness is peat. And peat is decomposed vegetation.
Oh, great.
So one
I
of the
love decomposed vegetation.
It's wonderful. Just put a little milk on that, and then you have
fantastic.
a nice granola crunch. So decomposed vegetation is one thing that a lot of people attribute to single malt Scotch is that smoky flavor. Some people love it, some people hate it, but that smoky flavor actually comes from this. That's used in the malting process. They use that as a heat source. They throw it in the fire like we would wood or coal.
Okay.
But what's interesting about that is when it burns, it releases this smoke that just clings to the barley, and it stays with it all through the distillation process.
I love bourbon. So how would you recommend would be the best way for me to drink bourbon?
Well, I think, with bourbon, I go through certain levels of how to best appreciate whiskey. The first one is the nose. Or actually, just visually, look at the bottle, understand what you're drinking, look for an age statement, look where it's produced, look at the color of it. When it was distilled, before I went into the cask, it was crystal clear. It was as clear as water.
Wow, okay.
So, notice that all this color came from that maturation in wood.
So the darker and richer that it looks.
Generally speaking, it's aged a little bit longer.
Okay.
However, sometimes people finish whiskey in ex-sherry casks or ex-port casks. And those tend to produce a really dark whiskey as well.
Okay.
So number one is just look at the bottle, look at the glass, hold it up. Just appreciate that this untouched whiskey had been sitting in a cask for however many years, and then it goes into a bottle, and then it goes into your glass. I mean, it's pure, it's true, it's a great way to drink a spirit. Number two is you want to nose it. And what I do when I nose whiskey is I bring it in. You don't want to swirl it. When you swirl it, well, people generally want to swirl it because if they drank wine, they've seen people swirling their wine, which aerates it. What you're going to do if you swirl this is by swirling it, you're actually releasing more of the ethanol alcohol, and the ethanol alcohol creates that burn in the nose. So you don't want to swirl it because then you go in to nose it and you're going to get that burn in your nose. So
so don't budge.
You can a little budge is fine, but not like crazy swirl.
Yes.
So you want to go in and. Some people like jamming their nose right in it. Some people kind of waft it underneath their nose. But just notice the subtle aromatics that are coming off it. And one thing with bourbon that I always get is I get candy corn. So you may get that. There's a lot of caramel, a lot of toffee, vanilla.
I think that's why I like it so much. It's all of those flavors.
Next thing I do is I take a little sip, and then the first sip's important. You want to roll it around your tongue. You want to coat your tongue. If you're not a big whiskey drinker, initially you're going to get a little heat on the tongue. But let's try a little taste.
Got the heat.
Got the heat. All right. So I always say the first taste doesn't really count. You're just acclimating your mouth and your palate to the flavors and the alcohol. So then wait a couple seconds, then you want to go back in for another drink. And when you go back in, again, let it roll around your tongue, let it hit the different areas of your mouth to really release some of those flavors.
Great. Oh, I see, right. So
Now,
the flavors widen.
I find after you take a drink, you swallow, you open up your mouth, you can almost feel like the vapors coming back up through.
So true, I do. Right,
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, so we've eyed it, we've nosed it, now we've tasted it. One of the most important things with whiskey, I think, is the finish. And the finish is basically what's happening in your mouth right now. That layers of complexity that keep coming out is what really, for me, marks a great whiskey. So
what did you think about the food concept here? I had a really great tasting as well. The mac and cheese was delicious, and your steak.
Our executive chef is phenomenal. Again, the concept was really about spending a mature, elegant evening out with your friends. We wanted to create a space that you could come out, have a great meal, be entertained, and also have a great selection of whiskey.
Thank you so much, Tommy, for having us here today and giving us such a great experience and showing us how to drink whiskey the right way.
My pleasure.
So I invite everyone to come down and have the same experience that I have this evening at 37 West 26th Street in Flatiron.